one of the closest words that we can bring up that is similar to mindfulness is awareness. And so I'll be using the word awareness here a little bit, as well as mindfulness. But mindfulness is a non-judgmental look at things. If somebody's mindful, they have an ability to see things for what they are, without putting their personal story into the mix. And they're also able to, apply a certain amount of concentration on the not only the thing that they're being mindful about, but also the practice. So it's interesting. Like if somebody wants to be mindful, they have to remind themselves. So there's that memory aspect of mindfulness. We have to remind ourselves to be mindful. Not all the time, but when we're practicing it and applying it. So it's kind of funny that way. But we can be mindful in a very contemplative way, in a very concentrated way, when we look at ourselves from the standpoint of when we look at our emotions or our feelings. And if we can look at them without like a personal judgment, or without any judgment in the mix, then our chances are, if we're doing it for any length of time, that we're being mindful and really looking at all the different angles of it. And one of the things that I like to, if somebody's fairly new to the concept of mindfulness and meditation, I like to tell them to be mindful in the moment, right now, is to ask yourself, what kind of state are you experiencing at this moment? A state being moods and emotions. So what kind of state are you experiencing at this moment right now? And then we take that reflective look. We look inside, and that's a mindful look of what's going on within us. So if somebody says, what state am I experiencing? I'm analyzing and kind of investigating, and I feel some happiness and some anticipation about what I might be talking about next, or something like that. And it's different for everybody. And if we want to be further mindful, we can watch that change, because it will change like everything else. That mood or emotion will change, just as in the moment that we're looking at it. All of a sudden it'll be something different, and all of that is a part of mindfulness. Awareness is the key aspect of awareness is knowing. And if we are aware of something that we know and we recognize it, and that's really, at the moment anyway, that's about all that has to be said about awareness, is that it's a knowing. That's a key to remember that. So when we meditate, we look at, from the standpoint of beginning, or not even only beginning, but when we first sit down to meditate, we are usually connecting with the body in some way. And in the Buddhist teachings, that was exactly what he talked about first, was the body, and using the body and how to be mindful of the body and aware of the body in meditation when we first start. So it's kind of interesting. And it's quite easy too. And a lot of us, when we think of meditation, we think of the breath and bringing our attention to the breath, being mindful of the breath, being aware of the breath, all of these things. And because that is the object that we're used to focusing on, and we can feel it, and it's, a good, healthy part of meditation for most of us, and that's absolutely fine. The Buddha talked about the breath a lot. But there's other aspects of the body, and primarily the senses, that are a big part of meditation, especially when we first close our eyes and we sit in silence. We're still experiencing these senses because they were firing well, all of our life, but they were firing certainly today. You know, we were hearing all these different sounds. Can you imagine how many different sounds you heard today? You know, it's, if you took a drive someplace or turned down the radio or the TV or something, you heard just all sorts of different sounds, incredible amount of different sounds and frequencies. And if you listen to music or listen to, you know, anything for, you know, a conversation or something, a lot of different things were going on there. And we can both be mindful of that in the moment, you know, especially if somebody says something that hurts our feelings, for example. You know, we can be very mindful of our reaction or why they said that particular thing, how it affected us at that moment, and then, you know, carrying on the residual effect like a chemtrail, you know, how it carried along with us. Just those words, you know, that's one way of being mindful of these sounds, these things that are said. And we can also be mindful and aware of the delusion of it. You know, how these sounds and these words and these frequencies are just a vibration in the ear, and that's all they are. But yet we take them personal. You know, we take this story, we create this story based on these things that we hear. You know, we can be mindful of all that, we can be aware of all that. And when we close our eyes and go into meditation, we hear, oh, here we hear airplanes going over a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's been pretty quiet lately. You know, a lot of times when we're meditating, we'll hear dogs barking in the distance. Sometimes they're barking real close, but thankfully we don't have that problem here. And we can also even hear somebody breathing, might hear somebody cough, we can hear cars, all these different sounds that we can hear. And that's just one aspect of our senses. But there's our smell. When I walked in the back here a little while ago, I got this new cleaning company, this new pool cleaning service. And I walked in the backyard and it smelled like perfume. And I thought, did they really put some perfume in the water? You know, maybe that, because it was the first time they cleaned it last Tuesday. That was yesterday, I guess, yeah. They cleaned it yesterday, and I thought, maybe the first time that they actually put a little bit of perfume in the water on a subconscious basis, like, wow, these guys are great, they even smell nice, you know. But, so, you know, our senses and our smell is really, we wouldn't think of it as being a big part of meditation, a big part of being spiritual, but it is one of the senses. And it's connected to taste. If we could not smell, we would, a lot of the food that we eat, we probably wouldn't appreciate it as much as we do. Then on the other hand, maybe we could eat more of the foods that we don't appreciate the smell of, or the smell that triggers a memory. That's a big thing for a lot of people. And so we have this taste, one of the senses. We have the smell, another sense, and then the hearing. And then the sight that we have. In meditation, it's more visualizations if we close our eyes. A lot of people meditate with their eyes open. And with that, they have the peripheral, you know, they have all of this vision that they're working with. And eventually that, like all of the other aspects of the senses, that gets narrowed down, and it's not a factor when it comes to meditation. But most of the people I work with have their eyes closed, because the reason I do that is so that people can experience, they're more apt to experience jhana, or deep states of concentration, particularly in the area of the nimitta. Nimitta is a mind sign. It can be different for everybody. And it usually, maybe 80% of the time, it appears with the eyes closed. So it's something within the mind, on the inside of the eyelids, we could say. Nimitta could be a bright light. It could be a film that a person sees. It could be some kind of a texture that a person sees. But a nimitta is a sign that comes up when a person is meditating, and usually in place to replace, I should say, the breath, because it's a sign that we are fully concentrated, and we can test that by noticing when it appears, and we go, oh, there's that light, or there's that sign again, and it disappears. That means that we weren't concentrated at that moment. We were recognizing it, we were identifying it, and so our concentration wasn't as keen, so it was gone. And then we fall into this concentration state, and then the nimitta comes back again. So we have the senses. We have the sight and smell and taste, and there's 5 senses, right? Hearing, and then the other one is the sense of touch, and we're all too familiar with that, especially if we're experiencing any kind of discomfort. That's the touch sensation, or the touch sense. And so these 5 senses, smelling, hearing, tasting, touch, and smell. Did I say smell already? Is that, I lost track there. But it's basically, a lot of them are the holes in our head, the ears and eyes, nose, mouth. There's 4 of them right there. And then the 5th one is the touch, the tactile sensations of the skin, basically, and within the muscles and within the body. So there is the 6th sense, and that is the aspect of kind of the next stage of meditation for most people. So we sit in meditation, and we're very attuned to the body when we first sit, and that's normal. That should be a part of it. We should pay attention to the breath, and we can use the breath as our meditation object. We could also use sounds. We can also use just feelings. And we can just kind of tune into the overall sensual world from a meditative standpoint. And what I mean by that is that we don't want to connect with how something smelled yesterday, or the taste that we're going to enjoy in the future, or hopefully we don't want to think of something we saw on the way here. We want to be very, very present. So in order to be very present, we bring our attention to the body, this knowingness of the body, and what we're smelling now, and what we're breathing now, how we're breathing at this moment now, how the images that we're seeing, the visualizations that we're seeing at this moment right now. And if we do that, and the sound, that airplane that we're hearing right now, even with my hearing aids, I can hear that. And if we do that, we're very mindful, and we're very present, and it works. We can do that throughout the entire day. Just be very much in tune with our world right now, in the moment, through the senses. And it's a very, very good practice. We waken. We have a tendency to awaken all of our senses. We see the reality of the world in the moment, which is very, very important to see the truth, to get beyond the delusion of the world. And this delusion or illusion is connected, is believing that image that I saw yesterday is true, that I'm seeing it again right now, or the smell that I experienced is something that I'm smelling right now. It's an illusion of the mind, and on and on and on and on. Matter of fact, that's most of our world, if we allow it to be. So the next step in meditation is awareness, not awareness of the body, although we can still connect with that, but awareness of the mind. And there's really, the best way that I can describe it, but it's being aware of awareness. So when we're in meditation, we are aware of the senses, and we are aware of We can be aware of how the senses, how this seeing and smelling and tasting and touching, all these things affect the mind, our mind, how we're reacting to it, how it's affecting our feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, how it's affecting our emotions. Does it make me happy to experience this thing in the moment, this smell or this taste, for example? Does it disturb me in some way? And so when we're aware of all these things, we are using the aspect of the mind to notice that awareness. We're being aware of the awareness. And when we're doing that, we are certainly getting beyond the illusion of the world that I spoke about in a couple minutes ago, or 1 minute ago actually. So the aspect of meditation from this standpoint is showing us the truth. It's showing reality. And if we want to experience the truth from a deeper and deeper and deeper standpoint, a lot of people look at that as spirituality, but it's really a part of meditation. If we meditate more, we learn more about ourselves. When we learn more about ourselves, we learn more about reality, about the truth of who we are and our place in the world. And we start to get a closer look when we're looking at the mind, being aware of this awareness. We get a closer and clearer look and insights as well of our conscious world, first of all, and then we go into our unconscious or subconscious world. And so that's where the deeper, much deeper understanding comes from, is our ability to look at the subconscious from a meditative standpoint. And it's not always easy to see because a lot of the stuff in the subconscious has been hiding, it's buried, and for the typical person, they just have to, it's not that we're atypical or anything, but we have this average, on an average basis, I would say, with non-meditator, they would just have to wait for this subconscious information to come up so that they can look at it and identify it and see it and recognize it. And sometimes it's not even recognized because they don't see it as the truth. They don't see it as something that has come up from their own mind, such as a repressed or a suppressed emotion or memory, something like that. So the reason I'm bringing this up is so that we can recognize when we're meditating kind of two different levels. When we're meditating and we're connecting with the body, being aware of some aspect of the body, and that can kind of be like a conscious memory as well. Like if we find ourselves trying to meditate, we notice that we are at work and we're doing something. We're actually at the computer, or we're fixing something, or looking at a screen or something like that. That could actually be considered a sensual experience because there's images. We might even have an image of us doing something. We might see it like a screen, or we might see it from the eyes of us, doing something. So that can actually be considered a sensual experience, coming from the senses. But what we want to look for is those experiences when we are aware of the awareness, when we are aware that the mind is recognizing how it might be affected by all of this. If the mind has drifted off into the past and we're at work or doing something, how is our mind associating with that? How is our mind referring back to that, and why is it doing it? So we can actually watch the aspect of the mind, awareness, watching awareness. And when we do that, we should be looking for the truth of many, many things. You know, the truth is usually something that comes up for us that is very worthy and healthy for all of us, for ourselves and for others. And something that usually cannot be denied. So when we talk about insight meditation, that's exactly what is happening as well. These insights in the form of awareness come up for us. Please close the eyes if you like. As mentioned, some people do keep the eyes open slightly. And if you're experimenting with this, keep your eyes about 3 or 4 feet in front of you. You're not to be looking around, but keep your gaze very soft in one point, directly in front of you. And preferably on a stationary object rather than on somebody's clothing that might be moving from the fan or something like this. Meditation is a real gift for us when it comes to understanding ourselves. When we understand ourselves, we understand others at a deeper level. We've been connecting with our senses all of this life. Even when we were in the womb, we were using our senses, touch and sound. All of these subtle senses were being developed. And then when we came into being, we relied on them to such an extent that it was our world. And so we feel as if these sounds come to us. That these things that we see are like pictures. That we have a unique sense of smell and taste. And we touch and experience things uniquely, like in our own world. But if we would hear a sound, such as the sound of a bell, we all hear it, unless there's some injury to the ears or the hearing in some way. We can all share that sound. And so there is a oneness. When we close our eyes, we can see images, visualizations. These are like moving memories of our world, things that we've experienced. It's very much like a dream. When we dream at night, we see images. Most of us do. And we often take these images for being real. We wake in the morning and go, or say that it seems so real, it was right there. I was doing it, I was touching it, I was seeing it. But the only thing that is real is what is happening in the moment, and that doesn't stay real for very long. The Buddha described this very simply by saying that everything is impermanent, that everything has the nature of impermanence. And so from this standpoint, the way we see the world is, and experience the world, is very much like an illusion. It's changing constantly. If we remember something the way it happened, or the way something looked, it's not like that anymore. But yet we believe it to be so. And so from that standpoint, if we have any attachments to anything, we have attachments to things that are illusionary, that are not real. And we experience this in meditation when our minds go to the past and the future. But we can sit right now and experience the presence, this present moment, by being aware of what is being heard at this moment. What is being experienced overall in this moment? What is being visualized? What is being felt? What is being smelled or tasted? The sounds that we're experiencing at this moment. I think most of us can see that this is much more the truth of what is happening than relying or experiencing our senses from something that had happened, that we did smell in the past or experienced in the past or saw. But when we start connecting with the mind in our meditation practice, awareness, watching awareness, and the mind goes into the past or into the future, there is that that feeling or that mood or emotion that is connected with that. And if we are aware of that, we are actually being present while the mind is almost, we could say, drifting off, going into the past and going into the future. So we can be mindful, we can be aware and present while we're thinking of yesterday or while we're planning for tomorrow. And this is what some people would suggest is the mind of an awakened being, awakened person that is constantly aware, almost in a habitual way, without effort, constantly knowing how they're being affected by their environment, by their thoughts, by what they see, smell, taste, hear, touch, and by what they think. So from that standpoint, meditation truly is a practice of going within. We're going within the awareness, our own awareness, being aware of the mind, being aware of the goings on of the mind in the moment. And if this is happening, we're not losing control. We're most likely watching any kind of anger rather than being angered. We're experiencing life to its fullest because we're actually in it. We can be happy and we can be sad, but we are aware of why and what the mechanism is and what's causing it. When we notice people that have been meditating for many, many years, people like the Dalai Lama, for example, very emotional, go from being very saddened by a situation one moment, the next moment they're very happy and excited to be a part of this life, to be alive. Because they're living the moment. They're actually connected to what is going on within their life, moment by moment by moment. Completely aware. The Dalai Lama was asked by a reporter, he was asked, what was your most joyful moment in your life? And the Dalai Lama said, I think it's right now. So we can sit in silence, and I encourage you to be aware of awareness. Watching the mind. Put our palms together in front of our heart, if you like. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. And may we have the patience, the courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face in life. We're looking at and being aware of the mind and how the mind is affected by these things that we partake in, things that have happened or things that are happening in the moment. And I mentioned the Dalai Lama when he was asked, what was your most, by that reporter, what was your happiest memory or your happiest time? I can't remember exactly how it was worded. And he said, I think it's right now. I think it's, he was saying, I think it's this moment that right now, because he didn't want to look in the memory bank and try to find something that might have provided more happiness in the past. And he was perfectly fine with what was happening at the moment. He's happy. And maybe that was the happiest. He didn't say it was. He said, I think maybe right now, So it was a way of saying, why look for that happiness that we once had, or that the memory that could have been the pinnacle or something. What's wrong with this moment? What's going on now? So what's wrong with this moment? Because when we think about the awakened mind, the awakened mind is not lost in this illusionary world. It's not. That's like that's almost like a drunken mind or something. That is just might be happy in the moment, but lost in fantasy and lost in the past, or what might be of the future and that type of thing. But when we think of what would be the awakened mind would be very, very keen, very present, very aware of what is happening now, very much alive, very much in tune, with what is going on. The analogy of the compressor, the compressor is something that they use in recording studios. That typically, when you turn up the volume on a stereo or an amplifier, the highs and the lows and all the mid-range and everything just go splat, they come out there like that. So if somebody shouts into a microphone, it takes your ears off, and it hurts. Or if there's a high screaming sound or something, it hurts the ears, or a low bass will hurt the ears too. And a compressor is called it's called a compressor because it takes these highs and lows and puts them and actually takes these signals and brings them together like this. It compresses the highs and lows, and it's used in recording industry all the time. It's more pleasant to hear. You can actually, with these, when these signals are compressed, you can take that whole stack of sound, we could call it, that whole signal, and then bring the volume up like that. So we can turn it up, and it's still pleasant to listen to. It's not hard to listen to. And so that's how our world can be, you know, without these extreme highs and these extreme lows that can be painful. We take that and we compress it in the present moment. And then that's the like a fullness of life. We can make life even more abundant and more fuller. And what I said, like louder almost. We can turn up the volume of our life without that painfulness, you know, that discomfort.
It's kind of interesting to consider that every time you talk about the compressor analogy, I always think of antidepressants, like tricyclic antidepressants like Prozac, because that's exactly what they do, is they take away the highs and they take away the lows and they compress into a more
in a chemical way,
middle,
yeah.
in a chemical way. And that's really what people, a lot of, well, probably people that really are into meditation are not using those kind of drugs, but other people are really seeking that frame of not having the highs and the lows in general and actually seeking these. It's a little bit off topic, but that's what I think of every time you talk about that.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, if people seek that out in a chemical way, it's still it's a more enjoyable, safer, kind of more pleasant way to go about life. But then to be able to take that, to move that around in you know, that signal, overall signal, and to still have these highs in life and these lows. Like I said, the Dalai Lama, you know, he's happy and joyful one minute. Almost sounds like he's you know, when you explain it, it sounds like he's got some kind of a mental imbalance or something like that. He'll be happy at one moment and sad at another, but not in such a way that he's hanging on to this sadness or he's hanging on to this happiness. There's no attachment whatsoever. He can be happy in one moment and slide into the next emotion without that attachment to it. And so he's taken the signal and is just moving it through life rather than having those sticky moments, attaching to these high sensations and these lows and these types of things.